Chapter 1. I didn't find out my husband was leaving through a conversation. I found out through a text that said he had emptied our joint account and was flying first class to Miami with someone younger. And the strangest part wasn't the betrayal. It was how calm I felt, standing in my own boutique, folding clothes, realizing I had already prepared for the moment he thought would destroy me. I was folding a linen wrap at the front counter of Cedar Lane Studio when my phone vibrated against the wood. It was late afternoon in Raleigh, North Carolina, the kind of slow weekday hour when the light turns warm and customers linger longer than they need to. A woman I recognized from the neighborhood was asking about sizes. The register chimed softly. Everything felt ordinary, settled, predictable. Then I glanced down. The message was from Michael. It was short, practical, written the way he always wrote when he wanted to sound in control. He told me he was leaving. He told me he had already emptied our joint account. He told me he was flying to Miami with someone much younger. He did not apologize. He did not explain. He did not ask how I was holding up. My hands did not shake. That was the first thing I noticed. I finished folding the wrap, slid it into a paper bag, and thanked the customer for coming in. I even smiled when she told me she would be back next week. When the door closed behind her, the bell above it rang the same way it always did. Bright, cheerful, completely unaware of what had just changed. I stood there for a moment with my phone face down on the counter. I did not pick it up again. I did not read the message twice. I did not feel the rush of heat or panic I had always imagined would come with a moment like this. What I felt instead was a hollow stillness, like stepping into a room you have already visited in your dreams. I wiped the counter. I straightened a rack near the window. I checked the schedule taped behind the register. Everything around me continued to make sense, which felt almost insulting. My life had not collapsed loudly. It had simply shifted its weight. I had been married to Michael for 13 years. I was 42. I had built Cedar Lane Studio from a shared workspace and a few borrowed shelves into a steady boutique that paid its bills and then some. Michael used to call it my little shop. He said it affectionately at first, then dismissively. Over time, I learned not to correct him. The message sat in my pocket like a stone. I did not answer it. I did not ask where he was or when he planned to come back for his things. I did not ask who she was. I already knew enough. I locked the door at 6 as usual. I flipped the sign to closed. The street outside looked exactly the same as it had that morning. Cars rolled past. Someone jogged by with headphones in. Life did not pause for clarity. As I turned off the lights, another vibration came through. I did not check it. I knew without looking that it would be something small and sharp, a comment about my age, a suggestion that I would be fine once I adjusted. Michael had a habit of narrating endings as if they were favors. I grabbed my bag and stepped outside. The air smelt like rain that had not fallen yet. I walked to my car and sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, breathing slowly, deliberately. I was not trying to be brave. I was trying to stay present. What surprised me most was not the message itself. It was the sense of familiarity that came with it, the quiet recognition. Somewhere beneath the shock was a steady voice that said, "You have been here before, just not all at once." There had been signs. I did not think of them as signs at the time. They felt more like inconveniences. Late nights that did not line up with pay stubs, sudden interest in clothes he never used to care about, passwords changed for no clear reason, jokes that landed a little too hard when they were aimed at me. I had noticed. That was the uncomfortable truth. I had noticed and then explained it away. I told myself I was tired. I told myself I was being unfair. I told myself that marriages go through seasons, and this was just one of them. Women do that. We sense the shift long before it arrives, but we keep moving as if balance will return on its own. We do not break when the truth comes. We break slowly in the weeks before, convincing ourselves that love requires endurance more than clarity. I drove home through familiar streets. I stopped at the same red lights. I let the radio play without really hearing it. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as it had always had. The porch light was off. Michael was already gone. Inside, the silence felt heavier. I set my bag down and kicked off my shoes. I did not turn on the television. I did not pour a drink. I walked from room to room, noting what was missing: his travel backpack, a pair of shoes, the cologne he favored when he wanted to feel younger than he was. Another message came in, then another. I left them unread, not because I was strong, but because I understood something I had not before. If I answered now, I would be reacting, and reaction had never protected me. I sat at the kitchen table and rested my palms against the surface. The wood was cool, solid, real. My breathing slowed again. I felt empty but not lost. There's a difference between the two. Michael believed he had delivered the final blow with efficiency. He believed by acting quickly he had secured his advantage. He did not know that I had already adjusted the pieces of my life to account for this possibility, not because I wanted it to happen, but because some part of me had stopped assuming it wouldn't. I did not cry that night. That came later, in smaller moments, when I felt safe enough to let it. What I felt then was focus, a narrowing of attention, a sense that whatever came next would require my full awareness. Before going to bed, I finally picked up my phone. I read it once, all the way through. Then I turned it off and placed it face down on the counter. I did not feel abandoned. I felt confirmed. As I lay in the dark, listening to the house settle, a single thought surfaced with uncomfortable clarity. The thing I was most afraid of was not being left behind. It was realizing that my instincts had been right all along. Chapter 2. The thought stayed with me the next morning while I stood at the sink watching the coffee darken the mug. It did not accuse me. It did not comfort me either. It simply sat there, steady and undeniable, like a fact I had postponed accepting. I went to work early. The studio always felt calmer before customers arrived. Sunlight filtered through the front windows of Willow Row Atelier in Durham, North Carolina, landing on racks of fabric and shelves I had built with my own hands. I moved through the space slowly, straightening things that did not need straightening. My body knew the routine, even when my mind wandered. The past year of my marriage came back to me in fragments, not as a tragedy, but as a pattern. At the time, each piece felt manageable on its own. Together, they formed something I had not wanted to name. Aaron had started coming home later. He said the workload at his firm had shifted. I believed him because believing felt easier than asking questions that might change everything. He bought new clothes, sharper than his usual taste. When I noticed, he smiled and said he was trying to feel motivated again. I laughed and told him he looked fine either way. There were expenses that did not match our habits, small charges at places I did not recognize. When I asked, he waved them off. Work lunches, client meetings. I told myself I did not want to become someone who checked receipts. My daughter, Lily, was 15 then. She was in that delicate stage where everything felt temporary and permanent at the same time. I wanted stability for her more than I wanted certainty for myself. That mattered to me. It still does. There is a particular tension that comes with sensing the truth while hoping it is wrong. You begin to negotiate with your instincts. You tell yourself that love deserves patience, that suspicion corrodes what trust remains, that you are being unfair. I did not ignore the signs because I was naive. I ignored them because I was invested. One afternoon, while closing the studio, I remembered my mother sitting at our old kitchen table years ago, her hands wrapped around a mug she had not touched. She had trusted a business partner who promised security and delivered nothing. Nearly all of her savings disappeared in a matter of months. She never raised her voice about it. She simply became careful in a way I noticed even as a teenager. She used to say preparation is not pessimism, it is respect for reality. At the time, I thought she was being overly cautious. I understand now that she was trying to survive without bitterness. That memory did not make me suspicious, it made me attentive. In 2019, when the studio had finally reached a point where it could stand on its own, I formed a limited liability company under my name alone. It was not a statement, it was a safeguard. Aaron signed off on it without comment. He trusted me with the shop because he never considered it a real asset. 2 years later, I opened a separate checking account at a different bank. I told myself it was for business flexibility. That was true. It was also a quiet way of making sure not everything in my life rested on shared assumptions. By early 2023, the inconsistencies had grown harder to dismiss. I scheduled a meeting with Daniel Porter, a certified public accountant recommended by another shop owner. I framed it as a routine review. Daniel did not dramatize what he saw. He simply laid out the numbers and asked careful questions. He said something that stuck with me. Patterns matter more than promises. We went over income, expenses, and shared obligations. Nothing illegal, nothing explosive, just enough imbalance to warrant attention. I thanked him and left with a folder under my arm and a sense that I had crossed a quiet threshold. A few months later, I reached out to a family law attorney named Sarah Klein. I did not ask about divorce, I asked about rights, about contingencies, about what preparation looked like when you hoped you would never need it. Sarah listened more than she spoke. When she did speak, it was precise. She explained separation of assets, documentation, and the importance of timing. She did not tell me what to do, she told me what was possible. I remember leaving her office feeling oddly grounded, not empowered, grounded. Knowledge has that effect when it is offered without pressure. Through all of this, I said nothing to Aaron, not because I was plotting, but because confrontation without clarity has never led me anywhere useful. I needed information, not reassurance. There were moments when I almost spoke up, nights when he came home distracted and distant, mornings when he seemed impatient with small questions. Each time I weighed the cost of certainty against the cost of stability. Lily noticed the tension before either of us acknowledged it. One evening, she asked if everything was okay. I told her yes. It was the kind of yes that buys time. The truth is, I was afraid of being wrong, afraid of discovering that my instincts were fabrications built on exhaustion and imagination, afraid of damaging something that could still be repaired. Women are often told to trust their intuition only after it has been validated. Before that, we are expected to doubt ourselves for the sake of harmony. When the message finally came, it did not introduce a new reality, it confirmed an old one. The joint account held less than it once had, enough to make his withdrawal dramatic, not enough to cripple me. That was not an accident. It was not a trick either. It was simply how things had unfolded once I stopped assuming permanence. I did not feel clever about it. I felt sad. Sad that preparation had been necessary. Sad that love had required safeguards. I never intended to punish Aaron. I never planned a reveal. I prepared because I wanted to be able to stand if the ground shifted beneath me. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, I sat at the dining table and opened the folder from Daniel Porter. I reviewed what I already knew. I made notes. I did not rush. There was no urgency in clarity. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet that suggests everyone else is settled for the night. I realized then that I was not angry. I was resolved. Whatever came next would be handled deliberately, not because I was flawless, but because I refused to be destroyed by someone else's recklessness. I closed the folder and turned off the light. For the first time in months, I slept without bargaining with myself about what the morning might bring. Chapter 3. Morning arrived anyway, bright and indifferent, and I woke up before my alarm with a strange sense of space inside my chest. Not peace exactly, more like the absence of dread. I made breakfast for Lily the way I always did, toast and a scrambled egg. Orange slices on the side because she pretends she does not care but eats them every time. She came into the kitchen in an oversized sweatshirt, hair messy, eyes still half asleep. "Is he texting you again?" she asked. "Not yet," I said, keeping my voice even. She leaned against the counter, watching me like she was trying to read my thoughts. Teenagers act like they are not paying attention, but they notice everything that matters. "You're really calm," she said. "I'm focused," I replied. "Those are different." She nodded slowly, as if she was filing that away for later. Then she picked up a slice of orange and said, "If he comes back, you're not letting him in, right?" I set the plate in front of her. "Not today," I said. "Not until we know what we're dealing with." Her jaw tightened. She ate in silence, then grabbed her backpack and headed for the door. "I love you," she said, almost like it embarrassed her. "I love you too," I answered, and meant it with a kind of steadiness I did not have yesterday. As soon as she left, my phone buzzed, then buzzed again. The screen lit up with Aaron's name like a flare in the dark. I did not answer. I watched it ring, then stop. A second later, a text appeared. He wrote that I was being dramatic. He wrote that I should stop acting like a victim. He wrote that he was entitled to what he took and that Miami was already paid for. Then he sent a photo, his hand holding a drink in an airport lounge, a polished shoe visible at the edge of the frame, the kind of picture people post when they want to look untouchable. I stared at the photo, and something in me went quiet and sharp at the same time. He was not only leaving, he was performing. A new message arrived. He wrote that he bought first class because he deserved first class. He wrote that I could keep my little shop because it was all I would ever be good at. I locked the phone and set it down. I did not respond. Silence was not surrender. Silence was me refusing to play the role he wrote for me. At the studio, Marisol was already there, steaming garments and humming softly like she was trying to hold normalcy in place with sound. She looked up when I walked in, and her expression shifted. "He's posting," she said. I set my bag on the counter. "About what?" I asked, though I already felt the answer in my stomach. She held out her phone. "He tagged us," she said. I took the phone and scrolled. Aaron had posted a selfie at the airport with a caption about freedom and fresh starts. Then he added a line about how he was done funding hobbies and ready to invest in real life. Underneath it, someone commented asking if he meant me. He replied with a laughing emoji and wrote that some people confuse playing store with building a future. My throat tightened, not from heartbreak, but from something closer to anger. Not loud anger, the kind that makes your thoughts line up like soldiers. Marisol watched my face. "People are going to talk. Do you want me to say something if customers ask?" "No," I said, handing the phone back. "We don't defend ourselves to people who already decided." She exhaled. "That's a power move," she said. "It's a boundary," I corrected. The first customer of the day, Candace, walked in as if she owned the air. She made a beeline to the new arrivals, then paused and looked at me carefully. "I saw something online," she said. I kept my hands on the hangers, straightening the rack. "I figured you might," I said. Candace lowered her voice. "You want me to go comment?" she asked. "Because I will. I have time. I will make time." Despite everything, a small laugh escaped me. "Thank you," I said, "but no." She frowned. "Why not?" she pressed. "Because he wants a fight in public, and I'm not giving him one." Candace studied me for a beat, then nodded. "Okay," she said. "Then I'll do what I'm good at. I'll buy something expensive and tell everyone you're booked out for weeks." I looked up, surprised by the warmth that surged through me. "That might actually help," I admitted. Candace smiled like she had won a secret battle. "See," she said, "we can do classy revenge." She left with a garment bag over her arm and a promise to come back, and for a moment the studio felt like a place that still belonged to me. Then my phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from a vendor asking if everything was okay. They had heard I might be closing. My heart beat once, hard. I typed a calm reply, confirming my next shipment and payment schedule, then deleted a second draft that sounded too defensive. A minute later, another message arrived, this one from an acquaintance in our neighborhood group. She wrote that she was sorry to hear about my situation and hoped the split was amicable. I stared at the word amicable until it blurred. Aaron was spreading a story that made him look bold and made me look petty. He was trying to control the narrative the way he had tried to control the marriage by speaking first and speaking louder. I did not respond to her either. At 2:15, I got an email alert from our shared credit card. New transaction, airline, large. My hands went cold, but my mind stayed strangely clear. He had done exactly what I expected him to do. He had reached for the one thing he still thought he could use to prove he was winning. I stepped into the back office and closed the door. I called the number on the card. A woman answered with a steady tone. "Thank you for calling. This is Julia. How can I help you today?" I took a breath. "My name is Tessa Lane," I said, using my full legal name the way Sarah advised. "I'm the primary account holder. I need to remove an authorized user and dispute a travel purchase made today." Julia asked security questions. I answered without hesitation. I could hear her typing. "I see the charges," she said. "Airline tickets and a hotel reservation. It looks like they were made online." "Yes," I said. "They were not approved by me." Julia paused. "Is the authorized user your spouse?" she asked, carefully. "Yes," I said, matching her calm. "And he no longer has permission to use this account." "I can remove him immediately," she said. "I can also open a dispute. I want to set expectations. Merchants sometimes verify online purchases, but we will contact them right away." "Thank you," I said. "Please do both." She confirmed the authorized user was removed. She gave me a reference number. Then she said something that made my breath catch. "You may see the hotel cancel faster than the airline," Julia explained. "Some hotels reverse reservations quickly once they're notified." "That's fine," I said. "I just need the process started." When I hung up, I called Sarah Klein. She answered on the first ring. "Tell me what happened," she said. "He used the shared card for travel and he's posting. He's tagging my business." Sarah's voice stayed level. "Save everything," she said. "Screenshots, emails, alerts, all of it. Do not respond to him. Do not respond to anyone about him. If people ask, you say it's a private matter and your business is operating normally." I said, "He's trying to make me look unstable. He's doing it because he thinks the loudest person wins. In court, the person with documentation wins." I swallowed. My mouth was dry. "What happens next?" I asked. "I'm preparing a temporary financial restraining order request that limits what he can move. It's not instant, but the fact that he's draining accounts and using credit after announcing he's leaving helps us." "How long?" "Focus on today. Today, you stay clean, you stay quiet, you let him keep talking." I hung up and stared at the wall for a moment, listening to the muffled sound of Marisol greeting customers in the front. Normal voices, normal questions. The world still turning. An hour later, my email chimed. Dispute update. I opened it with my thumb. The hotel reservation had been canceled. I did not feel joy. I felt release, like a tight band around my ribs had finally loosened one notch. My phone started ringing again, over and over. Aaron. I let it ring until it stopped. Then a text came. "What did you do? Answer me." Another arrived. "You can't do this. That was my trip." I stared at the words, and for the first time since the message, I felt something closer to satisfaction, not because he was suffering, because the universe had finally responded to him the way I had responded all along. Actions have consequences. When I closed the studio that evening, I drove home with the sky turning purple and heavy. Lily was at the kitchen table doing her homework, pencil tapping nervously. She looked up. "He called me," she said quietly. My stomach dropped. "What did he say?" I asked, sitting across from her. She hesitated. "He said you were being vindictive. He said you were trying to ruin his life. He told me to tell you to stop." I reached across the table and covered her hand. "Listen to me," I said. "You do not carry his messages for him. You do not have to be in the middle." Her eyes shined, angry tears held back. "He's making it sound like it's your fault," she said. I squeezed her hand. "It's not my job to protect him from the consequences of his choices. My job is to protect you." My phone buzzed again. Another email. "Airline dispute received. Investigation opened." I set the phone down, face down on the table. Lily watched me. "You're not scared anymore," she said. I exhaled slowly. "I'm scared," I admitted. "I'm just not confused." Outside, the house was quiet. Inside, my phone kept lighting up with Aaron's panic. I did not answer. I sat with my daughter, helping her with a math problem. Chapter 4. I learned quickly that once someone decides you are the villain in their story, they will keep rewriting the plot until other people believe it too. Sarah filed the paperwork within 48 hours. She called it a temporary order, a request to stop Aaron from moving money and stacking new debt while everything was pending. She warned me it was not a magic switch. She warned me he would be notified. She warned me that notification alone could make him louder. She was right. He started emailing my business account, the one listed on my website, the one customers used for appointments. The subject lines were theatrical. One said, "Final notice." Another said, "Legal action." I did not open them on my laptop. I forwarded them to Sarah and kept a copy in a folder. Then I blocked his business emails from my inbox because boundaries are not vindictive. They are oxygen. The next message came as a text. "If you think you can cut me off, you're out of your mind." I was steaming a dress in the back room when it arrived. Marisol was up front with a customer, her voice soft and practiced. The normalcy of it all made Aaron's words look even more childish on my screen. Then another text. "I helped build your shop. You don't get to pretend it's yours." I felt my pulse jump, not because I believed him, but because I could already hear how he would say it in front of other people, loud, certain, as if confidence could replace proof. I called Sarah. She answered immediately, like she already knew. "He's escalating," I said. "I saw the emails," she replied. "He thinks threats are leverage." "He says he helped build my shop," I said. Sarah let out a small breath. "Let him say it," she told me. "If he claims ownership, he has to prove it. And if he lies, he creates a record." "I don't want this to turn into a circus," I said. "It won't if you stay clean," she said. "No responding, no public fights. We let him talk, we let the paperwork speak." I stared at a stack of receipts on my desk, the ones Daniel Porter helped me organize months ago. I had thought it was excessive at the time. Now it felt like a life raft. That night, Aaron called again. I did not pick up. Then my phone rang from a number I did not recognize. I hesitated, then answered, because Lily was at a friend's house and my mind jumped to worst-case scenarios. A woman's voice came through, sharp and familiar in that way older voices can be when they expect compliance. "This is Patricia," she said, "Aaron's mother." My throat tightened. "Hi," I said. "I don't know what you think you're doing," she said, "but you need to stop." I held the phone away for a second, breathed, then brought it back. "What exactly do you want me to stop?" I asked. "Ruining him," she snapped. "He told me you called the bank and canceled his trip. He told me you're trying to take everything. That's not who you are." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. A woman defending her son by pretending the facts were a misunderstanding. "I didn't cancel his trip," I said. "He used a card he no longer had permission to use." Patricia made a sound like dismissal. "You're splitting hairs," she said. "You're angry and you're trying to punish him." "I'm protecting myself and my daughter," I replied. There was a pause, then her voice lowered, as if she was offering wisdom. "Men make mistakes," she said. "They get confused. They have midlife moments. You don't throw away a family over a moment." I swallowed. My hand was steady on the phone. He threw it away by text, and he emptied the account the same day. Patricia inhaled sharply. "I will not discuss this with you," she said, "but I'll tell you this. Aaron will fight you. He has every right. He supported you. That shop exists because he let you play with it." I felt heat rise in my chest, then settle into something colder. He did not let me, I said. I built it. Patricia hung up. I stared at the dark screen for a moment, then I set the phone down and walked into Lily's room. It was tidy in that teenage way that means everything is shoved into drawers. I sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the posters on her wall. I reminded myself that I was allowed to be tired. I was not allowed to be reckless. 2 weeks later, the hearing date arrived. Sarah met me outside the courthouse in Raleigh, a plain building that looked nothing like the dramatic courtrooms on television. Everything about it was designed to drain emotion out of people. Fluorescent lights and beige walls, and metal detectors that beeped at innocence and guilt the same way. Sarah wore a simple suit and carried a folder thick enough to feel like armor. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm here," I said. "Good," she replied. "Remember, short answers, let me do the talking. If he tries to bait you, you breathe and you look at me, not him." We walked through security. My stomach tightened with each step, not from fear of losing, but from the awareness that no matter what happened, a stranger would be deciding what my life looked like on paper. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Aaron stood with a man in a cheap suit who looks like he printed his business cards at home. Aaron's hair was styled differently, too careful. He looked at me like I had broken into his house. His parents were there. Patricia stood close to him, lips pressed tight, eyes fixed on me like I was a stain. Next to her was a tall, older man with graying hair, Greg, Aaron's father. He stared at the floor like he was waiting for it to open. Aaron stepped forward. "Wow," he said loud enough for people down the hall to hear. "You really did this. You brought lawyers. You're trying to bleed me dry." Sarah's hand lifted slightly, a quiet signal for me to stay still. Aaron smirked. "You think you're some kind of genius? You think you can hide money and freeze me out? Guess what? I'm not leaving empty-handed. I built that place with you." Sarah spoke before I could. "Mr. Hale," she said, her tone even, "we're not discussing the case in the hallway." Aaron laughed. "Scared?" he said, looking at me. "Tell her you never would have opened that shop without me. Tell her I paid the bills while you played dress-up." Patricia nodded sharply, as if she was affirming the lie into existence. My fingers curled around the strap of my bag. I wanted to correct him. I wanted to say that I worked late nights, that I paid vendors, that I built the client list, that I filed the taxes, that I did everything while he dismissed it as cute. Sarah leaned closer, her voice low. "Don't," she whispered. "Let him do it in there." The bailiff opened the courtroom door and called our names. Inside, the room was smaller than I expected. No dramatic bench, no grand flags, just a judge's desk and a few rows of chairs. The judge sat quietly, reading papers, glasses low on his nose. His nameplate read Judge Whitaker. We took our places. Aaron's attorney shuffled his papers like he was trying to look busy. Judge Whitaker looked up. "Ms. Lane?" Then glanced to my side. "Counsel?" Sarah stood. "Your Honor." The judge turned toward Aaron. "Mr. Hale? Counsel?" Aaron's attorney stood and cleared his throat. "Your Honor, my client is being unfairly restricted. He was cut off from funds he contributed to. He is being punished out of spite." Judge Whitaker's expression did not change. Sarah rose calmly. "Your Honor, we are requesting a temporary financial restraining order due to documented unilateral withdrawals from a joint account and attempted use of shared credit after separation was declared. We have bank statements, card alerts, and written admissions." Aaron's attorney scoffed. "Admissions," he repeated. "Texts sent in the heat of emotion are not admissions. He was upset. He was provoked." Judge Whitaker lifted a hand slightly. "Let's keep it factual," he said. Sarah placed a packet on the table. "Mr. Hale texted Ms. Lane he emptied the joint account. He also referenced travel purchases made on a shared card where Ms. Lane is the primary holder. We have the dispute reference number and the removal of authorized user. We also have documentation showing the business is solely owned by Ms. Lane through an LLC formed in 2019, with separate banking established in 2021, and tax filings supporting it." Aaron leaned forward, unable to help himself. "That's because she hid it," he blurted. Sarah did not look at him. Judge Whitaker looked directly at Aaron. "Mr. Hale," he said, voice calm, "you will speak when you are asked." Aaron's jaw clenched, but he sat back. The room went quiet again, the kind of quiet that makes your heartbeat sound loud in your own ears. I stared at the edge of the table, focusing on the grain of the wood so I wouldn't look at Patricia's face. Aaron's attorney tried again. "My client supported her while she pursued this venture. He paid household bills, he made sacrifices. He should not be cut out of an enterprise he helped create." Judge Whitaker looked down at the documents, then back up. "Do you have evidence of ownership, capital contributions, a name on the LLC, anything beyond marriage?" Aaron's attorney hesitated. "We have his testimony." Aaron couldn't stand it. "I paid for everything," he said, louder than necessary. "I let her do it. I covered the mortgage, I covered the utilities. She would have failed without me." Judge Whitaker's eyes stayed on Aaron. "So you let her do it," the judge repeated, as if testing the words for weight. Aaron blinked. "Yes, because I'm not heartless." Sarah spoke smoothly. "Your Honor, that statement alone speaks to his understanding. He does not describe shared ownership. He describes permission. The legal documents do not reflect ownership, and his own messages show an intent to destabilize Ms. Lane after announcing his departure." Aaron's face flushed. "That's not what I meant," he snapped. Judge Whitaker held up a hand. "I've heard enough," he said. My stomach flipped. My mouth went dry. I was suddenly aware of every sound, the scratch of a pen, the shifting of a chair, the faint hum of the lights. For a moment, I was not sure if my careful preparation would matter or if everything would come down to one person's interpretation. Judge Whitaker looked down at the papers again, then spoke. "Temporary financial restraining order is granted," he said. "Neither party will move significant funds or incur new joint debt outside normal living expenses without consent. Mr. Hale will return the withdrawn amount to the joint account pending further proceedings, according to the schedule set by the clerk. Claims regarding the business will be addressed at the appropriate stage, but based on the documentation provided today, the business appears to be separate property." Aaron's head snapped toward his attorney, disbelief flashing across his face. Patricia's lips parted like she was about to protest, then she caught herself. Greg stared at his hands. Judge Whitaker continued, tone unchanged. "This court is not interested in punishment," he said. "This court is interested in preventing harm while the process unfolds. Keep your communication through counsel. Do you understand?" Aaron's voice came out strained. "Yes," he said. Sarah's hand touched my elbow lightly as we gathered our things. In the hallway, Aaron's attorney muttered something to him. Aaron's face was pale now, the swagger gone. He glanced at me like he wanted to say something sharp, then thought better of it. Patricia looked at me once, but there was no fire left, only tightness, like she was trying to hold her world together with her jaw. Greg did not look up at all. Sarah and I walked out into the afternoon sun. The air felt colder than it should have. My legs felt heavy, not from defeat, but from the sudden release of pressure. "You did good," Sarah said quietly. I nodded, unable to find the right words. I did not feel victorious. I felt exhausted, the kind of exhaustion that comes when you have been carrying weight for a long time and someone finally takes part of it away. As I got into my car, I looked at my hands on the steering wheel. They were steady, not because I was fearless, but because I had stopped trying to win an emotional argument and started insisting on reality. I drove away from the courthouse in silence, letting the city streets guide me home, feeling the heaviness in my chest slowly shift into something lighter, something closer to relief. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sun had dipped lower, and the shadows from the trees stretched across the lawn like quiet fingers. I sat in the car for a moment with the engine off, listening to the ticking sound it makes as it cools down, letting my body catch up to what had happened. Lily was home. I could see the glow of a lamp through the living room window. When I walked in, she looked up from the couch and held her breath like she was bracing for news. "How did it go?" she asked. I set my keys on the table and took a slow breath. The judge put limits in place, I said. He can't keep moving money around. He has to start returning what he took. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. So he lost, she said, the word sharp and hopeful. I sat beside her. It's not about winning, I said carefully. It's about stopping the damage. She studied my face, then nodded like she was trying to learn a new language. Is he going to come here? She asked. I don't think so, I said. And if he does, he doesn't come in. She leaned into my side for the briefest second, then pulled away like she remembered she was 16. Still, her fingers found mine and squeezed. That night I slept, but not deeply. My mind kept replaying the courtroom, the hush before the ruling, the way Aaron's confidence had collapsed into confusion. I had expected to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt emptied out, like all the adrenaline that carried me for weeks had finally been spent. In the days that followed, reality settled in. Aaron did not suddenly become kind. He became frantic. He sent texts that swung between pleading and blaming. He asked if we could talk. Then he accused me of humiliating him. Then he promised he would make things right if I stopped making it hard. I did not answer. Sarah told me not to, and I listened. The money came back in increments, not all at once. A payment plan through the clerk's office. It was slow and unsatisfying in the way real accountability often is. Still, each deposit felt like a small piece of stability returning to its place. The bigger shift was what happened to Aaron's image of himself. Within a month, the man who posted airport cocktails stopped posting entirely. The online bravado vanished. I heard, through the same neighborhood grapevine, he tried to weaponize, that he was staying in a budget motel near the interstate for a while because his parents refused to let him bring drama into their house. That part I did not celebrate. I did not want him homeless. I wanted him contained. The consequence that hit him hardest was not the money, it was the exposure. At his company, someone reported his relationship with the younger woman, Lena, not because anyone cared about morality, but because it was messy and public, and he had been foolish enough to involve coworkers in his performance. A friend of Marisol's husband worked in the same building and told her there were meetings, complaints, and internal review. When Marisol mentioned it to me, she did it carefully, like she was offering a newspaper article she did not want to sensationalize. He's in trouble at work, she said. I kept my eyes on the garment I was steaming. I'm not surprised, I said. Marisol hesitated. Do you want to know more? She asked. No, I replied. It doesn't help me. That was the new line I kept drawing. It doesn't help me. Drama that does not protect my life is just noise. Lena lasted less than 2 months after Miami never happened. I heard it from Aaron's cousin, who texted Lily by mistake and then apologized to me. The message was awkward and over-explained. It said Lena was upset because of being used, that she thought Aaron had money and freedom and a clean break, and that she had not signed up for court orders and financial restrictions. I stared at the screen for a long time before deleting it. In another version of this story, I might have felt satisfaction at that detail. In the version I was living, it mostly made me tired. Lena was not my enemy. She was a younger woman who believed a man who lied easily. I could not build my healing on the humiliation of another woman. The months passed in a rhythm that was both ordinary and different. Lily graduated high school the following spring. Aaron did not come to the ceremony. He blamed my lawyers. He blamed my attitude. He blamed everything except the consequences of his own choices. Lily said she was relieved. She stood in her cap and gown and smiled at me in the crowd, and that smile was worth more than any courtroom ruling. Willow Row ateliers stayed open, not out of defiance, out of necessity and pride. I did not become a social media martyr. I did not post inspirational quotes. I kept the lights on, paid my vendors, and showed up. The customers who mattered kept coming. The ones who liked gossip drifted away when I refused to feed them. In early 2025, I expanded the studio's online store, not with grand announcements, but with steady planning. I hired a part-time assistant to help with shipping. I streamlined inventory. I built a small email list. It was not explosive growth, it was sustainable growth, the kind of growth that does not require proving anything to anyone. One afternoon, as I was packing an order, Lily walked in the back office. She was home from her first semester of college, hair longer, eyes brighter, carrying herself like someone who survived a storm and discovered she was still herself. "You look different," she said. I laughed softly. "Older," I replied. "No," she said, shaking her head. "Lighter." The word landed in my chest and stayed there. That night, after she went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and thought about what I had really done. I had not beaten Aaron. I had not outplayed him like a chess opponent. I had simply stopped covering for him. I stopped smoothing over his choices. I stopped absorbing the fallout so he could keep believing he was in control. For years, I had carried emotional labor like it was part of being a good wife. I had carried financial risk like it was part of being a supportive partner. I had carried his moods so our house could stay calm. When he left, he assumed I would continue carrying him from a distance. I did not. That was the shift. Not revenge, release. The legal process wrapped itself up quietly, the way real endings often do. Paperwork, signatures, a final date on a form that looked too plain for the amount of life it contained. Aaron kept trying to negotiate for pieces he was never entitled to. Each time, Sarah responded with documentation. Each time, he backed down, because confidence doesn't hold up against records. The last time I heard his voice was on a voicemail he left after midnight. "I never thought you'd do this to me," he said, sounding smaller than I remembered. I listened once, then deleted it. Love doesn't mean letting someone ruin you. A year after the courthouse, I stood in my studio after closing and looked around at the quiet racks, the neat shelves, the soft glow of the front window lights. This place had survived my marriage. It had survived my divorce. It had survived the story Aaron tried to tell about me. I realized then that the most satisfying part of this whole mess was not watching him fall. It was watching myself stand without needing his permission. If you've ever had that moment where your gut told you something was wrong and you talked yourself out of it, I want you to think about that for a second. Not to blame yourself, not to replay every choice, but to notice what you were protecting. Was it love? Was it stability? Was it fear of being called crazy? And if you could go back to the first sign you ignored, would you still ignore it? Or would you quietly start preparing the way I did? Tell me what you would do. I read the comments, and I know I'm not the only woman who has had to learn the difference between being loyal and being self-destructing.